take a trip back in time with Millennial Memories, the podcast where Chris and Sean dive into the heart of 90s nostalgia, the music, movies, TV shows, and pop culture that defined a generation. So, chow down on a lukewarm slice of Sizzler cheese toast, and let's rewind to the best decades ever, cause it's time for Millennial Memories. This episode of Millennial Memories is titled Tapes or CDs, Not Vinyl.
G'day, I'm Sean.
And I'm Chris, and welcome to the Millennial Man Cave for this episode of Millennial Memories.
Big thanks once again to our AI producer, Slick Mick. He's a fake robot. He does things. He makes stuff up. He gives us info. Some of it's dicey, some of it's true. We'll find out.
As usual, he's been busy behind the scenes. And as he mentioned in today's intro, it's all about that savoury delicacy, Sizzler cheesy toast. Cheesy goodness.
It's so good. Sizzler restaurants first started trading in Australia in 1984, which was a fantastic year. And the American chain was known for its buffet-style dining. It made its debut in Australia in the suburb of Springwood in Queensland.
In Queensland, just
a stone's throw.
Yeah,
not far from here. It quickly became popular and expanded across the nation, and it became the brand we all know and love, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sizzler first began serving this signature dish way back in 1958 when the restaurant chain was founded in California in the USA, of course. Sizzler's cheesy toast is known for being served hot and fresh with the crispy exterior and, of course, that cheesy goodness interior that we all love.
Delicious.
Yeah, absolutely delicious. If you haven't had it, well, you can't get it anywhere. It's usually also served with an all-you-can-eat salad bar and, of course, with the other menu items, the desserts.
The beautiful
drinks,
buffet style. Long gone since COVID. Long gone.
Dream's over.
Look, we'll get stuck into more Sizzlerdom in a later episode. With
that little blast from the past, let's find out what's up on this episode of Millennial Memories.
What's up? What's up?
On this episode of Millennial Memories, as usual, we're getting stuck into some classic millennial goodness. So we're going to kick things off with our top 5 personal favourite albums from back in the day.
Then we're going to take a deep dive into the consumption of music media and all the different music formats over time, because as millennials, we've seen them all, from vinyl to streaming. And then on Versus, we'll compare 2 classic Aussie music programs. That'll be fun. Then we'll be heading back to the Tuckshop. We'll get in line. We'll do our thing.
Yep.
And look, let's just hope we get correct change.
And then plus, we're going to be welcoming a special guest to the show, and we'll make a noise, hint, hint, and we'll make it clear as we use our voice to whisper an Australian story on Storytime.
Then it's time, as always, to crank up the Wibbles scope and the Shaunometer on rewind.
Favourite part.
And of course, we'll wrap it all up with our usual pearls of millennial wisdom. And yes, we have a couple of questions on final thoughts.
Oh, I love those final questions. Hope they're back. But for now,
hot off the facts. Here it is from Slick Mick. What is it? It's facts first.
facts first.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Now it's time for Facts First.
All right, thanks, Mick. We've got some facts here that we want to go through. And the first fact for today is who released the first cassette tape? Okay.
Good question, yeah.
It is a good question. While the compact cassette was introduced by Philips in 1963 for voice recording and dictation, pre-recorded music cassettes began appearing in late 65, early 66. One of the first major artists to have a commercially released music cassette was actually the Rolling Stones, with their 1966 compilation album Big Hits, High Tide and Green Grass.
Never heard it.
Not familiar with that.
Not at all.
I mean, the Stones we know, and
yeah.
I'm sure that it's a compilation, so we'll know the songs, but not that specific record. But this marked an early milestone in using cassettes as a music format. Though initially slow to catch on, cassette tapes gained widespread popularity in the 70s and 80s, especially for their portability and for their use as mixtapes. We all made mixtapes, didn't we, as kids?
Oh, everyone did it, yeah.
Record songs off the radio, things like that. But the first cassette tape released in Australia. Okay, that's a bit of a more tricky question.
Yeah.
In May 1967, EMI Australia became one of the first major record companies to release pre-recorded music cassettes. They imported 26 titles. I don't know the titles, and Mick couldn't find them for us.
No.
From EMI UK and Decca UK. across the Columbia, Decca, HMV, and Parlophone record labels. This marked the official entry of the cassette format into the Australian music market. But by the early 70s, again, long before we were born, but
70s,
the 70s,
yeah.
EMI began manufacturing cassettes locally at Homebush in New South Wales.
Is that right? Australian production?
1970s they started.
1970s. Wow, this is a bit of a throwback. So I'm going to jump in here to the first CD release. So this was one I was unfamiliar with. The first commercially released compact disc was Billy Joel's 52nd Street.
Great album.
Great album, great artist, which was issued on October 1st, 1982 in Japan by Sony. Originally released on vinyl in 78, so obviously it went from vinyl to CD a couple of years later. It was selected as a debut CD to demonstrate the capabilities of the new digital audio format. So although ABBA's The Visitors was the first CD ever manufactured during the testing phase, Billy Joel's 52nd Street holds the distinction of being the first CD made available to the public.
Yeah, I would have withheld ABBA's album as well.
Yeah.
I would have gone with Billy Joel
again,
too.
Popular artist, big artist. So
Yeah, right.
anyway, jumping in next, the first CD released and manufactured in Australia. So here's some interesting ones for us. Well, I wouldn't have picked this. So any thoughts? Guess? No?
Well, I know the first CD made in Australia, but what's the first one that was released in Australia?
So it was Dire Straits' Brother in Arms was the first CD available in Australia when it was released in 1985. It was among the earliest albums recorded, mixed and mastered entirely digitally, helping to popularise the CD format worldwide and with its superior sound and durability. Again, that's something in debate. Some people like the vinyl, some people like CDs, but
it's interesting. Well,
yeah.
if you made it digitally and released it on a digital format, that kind of makes sense. I didn't know that Brothers in Arms was a digital recording. There you go.
So this was the first CD to actually be manufactured in Australia. Was John Farnham's Whispering Jack in 1985.
Yes, I knew that.
Was Johnny Farnham making it a key step in local CD production.
We might have a little more about Whispering Jack.
A little bit more,
later.
yeah. Pretty big figure in Australian music.
I'd say so. The first band or artist, though, to release their entire catalogue on the new digital compact disc format was the Beatles.
Oh, of course it was. Yeah,
I have here for our YouTube viewers, they can see the Beatles box set here, full of compact discs. In 1987, the Beatles became the first major band to reissue their entire catalogue on CD, starting with Please Please Me, their first album, and continuing in chronological order. And this move played a key role in establishing the CD as the preferred format at the time, helping to accelerate the shift away from vinyl and cassettes. There you go.
There you go.
So, right here, Beatles box set. Beatles are probably one of my favourite
mine too.
artists,
yeah.
definitely. But not really a millennial band per se, although their music goes across all the different generations.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it's time that we go and have a look at our top five.
Top five sounds good.
You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep
Now it's time for a cheeky top five.
In this top five, we're going to rank our personal top five albums from our date of birth through to 2010. But before we get there, we've got a couple of rules we need to go over.
We do. There's some parameters around this top five. So it had to have been released after we were born, which means for Chris, we're going to go
82.
And for me, we're going to go 84. The cutoff date is the year 2010, which I think keeps it in that millennial period of us, the coming of age period. And it can be any genre, any artist, and of any level of popularity, but it must be rad.
Must be rad.
Must be rad.
Very important.
All right,
Very
5 to 1. I'm going to go through mine. Number 5.
Hit us with your 5.
I've got Weezer, The Blue Album from 1994. It was their debut album, and it had the hit Buddy Holly, which people might remember the film clip from their Windows 95 CD. Happy Days.
Happy Days, yep.
Happy Days. Say It Ain't So was another great song. It was a defining 90s rock record, combined power pop and alternative rock. Multi-platinum status, it made Weezer a staple of the alt-rock scene.
Yep.
The second album, Pinkerton, arguably could be better, but I think time and place, right?
Time and place, yep.
Weezer Blue Album, number 5. Number 4, the Foo Fighters, Colour in the Shade.
Big album, yep.
Big record. Foo Fighters' second album with big hits, Everlong, My Hero, Monkey Wrench. It solidified Dave Grohl, post Nirvana.
Album, yeah.
It was a big record. Their first record was just Dave Grohl on his own. This was a full band lineup. It was known for its raw energy and emotional depth. It went multi-platinum. It's considered one of the band's best. I would say the best Foo Fighters album.
I would say so too.
It's a real cracker. Yeah, I love that record. Number 3, I've got Coheed and Cambria. The album is called Good Apollo. I'm Burning Star 4 Volume 1 From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness, which was released in 2005.
Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
This is a progressive rock album. You would have probably guessed that from the title, right? It makes sense. But great singles. Welcome Home. 10 Speed of God's Blood and Burial. Again, another long title. The Suffering was a great song. It blended complex sci-fi storytelling and ambitious compositions, and it actually debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 and then went platinum. People don't really know it, not everywhere. They should. It's a great record. They're a great band. Their whole catalogue pretty much revolves around a science fiction storyline. There's comics, there's everything. It's great. Coheed and Cambria. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Coheed and Cambria. Go and have a look. Number 2, Queens of the Stone Age, Songs for the Deaf, 2002.
Yeah, big one.
Loved Queens of the Stone Age. Massive fan of that record. I actually have a tattoo that's related to that album.
Where is it?
Can't tell you. That's a secret. Features hits, this album. No One Knows, big hit. People know that. They play it at sporting events now. It's all over the place. First It Giveth, Go With The Flow, really good songs. Song for the Deaf, the title track, also great. Known for heavy rock sound, radio broadcast concept. Now, the radio broadcasting, in between all the tunes, there is radio static and different radio stations. Very cool. Can be annoying at about the 3rd or 4th listen when you just want to hear the songs, but otherwise, very, very cool. It became the band's breakthrough album, reaching number 17. Only 17?
Only
I
17.
thought it got higher, but
So would I,
in the
yeah,
Billboard
I respect
200,
that.
and it's a fan favourite. It's just a great record. Josh Homme, Nick Oliveri, Dave Grohl, Mark Lanigan, the late Mark Lanigan.
Awesome lineup. Yeah,
Fantastic.
Awesome lineup. What's
Now,
number
my,
one?
My
What's
number one. My number one, Wibbles. Probably not that hard.
What
I
have
guess.
you got?
It is Nirvana's Nevermind. 1991.
Again, another huge album, right?
Game changer. Iconic tracks like obviously Smells Like Teen Spirit. We've got Come As You Are, Drain You, which is my personal favourite. It redefined rock music in the 90s. It just revolutionised the way that people listen to music. It changed things since the hair metal bands. 30 million copies sold worldwide and regarded as one of the greatest albums ever. You'll get no argument from me in regards to that.
No, again, like Nirvana were everywhere. That's at the early 90s stage. They were,
Yep.
Yeah, Nirvana was everywhere. It was a huge album. You couldn't escape
And it all burnt out so quick, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Terrible shame.
burnt
What are
out.
your top fives? Give me your top five, Chris.
Top five. So I've got my top 5 albums here. I've really gone on albums that you could listen from start to finish, where every song you put it on and you
Yeah.
could listen through. That to me was a great album.
Yeah.
If you could put it on and not have to skip 3 or 4 songs, to me that made a great album.
Consistency.
Consistency, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately, we couldn't pick singles. I would have gone with Milli Vanilli's "Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You." One of my personal favourites. Really love Milli Vanilli.
Oh, yeah, it's a cracker.
I mean,
LL Cool J being another one of
LL
yours.
Cool J, Diddy.
Yeah,
I
big
mean, all
fan.
those guys.
Diddy, yeah.
Great
Good
artists,
stuff.
great songwriters, and I think performers was the big thing. But coming in at my number 5
Yeah.
was Pearl Jam's 10.
Great
So again, around that same era as Nirvana. This was released in 1991. Of course, it was a grunge cornerstone album featuring powerful vocals and emotionally charged lyrics, which Eddie Vedder was obviously known for. Powerful voice. With standout tracks like Alive, that was again, huge breakout song for those guys. And Jeremy, if you don't know Jeremy, check it out. And this really established Pearl Jam as a major force in the alternative rock scene. Coming in at my number 4 was The Offspring and Smash. So this was released in 1994. This was a punk revival classic. Smash combines fast-paced rebellious energy with catchy hooks and satirical lyrics, spawning hits like Come Out and Play. If you haven't heard Come Out and Play, again, just a really unique sound to it. And also Self-Esteem. That was a really big song at the time. Again, lyrically, it was a pretty cool song and sounded different. Offspring sounded different to most bands around that time. Coming in at number 3, this was an absolutely huge album, big breakthrough album for this band. They were established, but this was a monster at the time. It was, of course, Metallica's Metallica, the Black Album.
Yep.
Everyone knows the
It was
Black
everywhere.
Album. It was, again, same time as Nevermind. It was released in 1991. It was a metal milestone that brought Metallica into the mainstream. So, featuring a more refined sound with heavy riffs and anthems like Enter Sandman, Everyone's heard it. You know the film clip probably more than anything.
Children running away from monster trucks, coming to run them over and stuff.
Yeah.
Mack trucks.
Scary, yeah.
It was a scary clip.
Scary clip.
We all saw it as little kids. So.
And then there was a beautiful song like Nothing Else Matters. So you had a real contrasting album there. Nothing Else Matters.
True, yeah.
Beautiful song.
Yeah.
Coming in number 2, one of my favourite bands of all time is Guns N' Roses, and it was Appetite for Destruction.
You love the Gunners.
I love the Gunners.
You've loved the Gunners for as long as I've known you.
I love Gunners. I do. I love everything they stand for. This was a hard rock landmark album released in 1987, and it features gritty, rebellious anthems like Welcome to the Jungle. Again, huge song, but I thought they had better songs on there. Of course, this featured Sweet Child of Mine. Again, it's still a beautiful song today, still sounds great. And it really blended raw energy with bluesy guitar riffs, and of course, Axl's iconic screechy, banshee-like vocals.
Yeah.
Again, huge album, and MTV really made Guns N' Roses. It was really a breakthrough for them.
Fucking Night Train.
Night Train. Again,
Night Train.
Great song.
That's all I got to say about that record. Night
They
Train.
went on to release other albums, but this was really a breakthrough album.
It's a cracker.
Classic.
It's
Classic
so good.
album.
Yeah.
My number 1.
What is it?
Completely different to the other albums. It sounds different. No band today sounds anything like them. And it's Tool, Anemia. It was their second album, released in 1996. It was really a huge breakthrough album for the band, and it blended progressive metal with dark, introspective themes and complex rhythms. If anyone knows Tool, they're well known for their sound, their timing, and of course their lyrics. There's not another band that sounds like them. And this is 30 years on.
A lot of copycats.
A lot of copycats, but you just can't replicate what they produced. It really featured, featured the debut introduction of Justin Chancellor, the new bassist on the album.
And he plays a prominent part. I mean, some of those bass lines are really iconic.
That's what makes them. It's the drums, the riffs, everything
rhythm
about
section.
their music. Absolutely everything about the music. The album actually won a Grammy and cemented Tool's place in the modern heavy music.
Wow.
I love every Tool album. Huge fan.
Tool are a deep band.
They are.
They are a deep band. But I reckon we can dive a bit deeper. It's time for a deep dive. Over to you, Slick.
Now it's time to take a deep dive.
Thank you, Mick.
Thanks,
it is
Mick.
time for a deep dive. We're going to go deep. How deep is your dive, Chris?
How deep is your dive?
This episode or segment of Deep Dive is music consumerism, the evolution of music media. As millennials, mate, we have been through the lot.
Been through the ringer, you could say.
The ringer.
Music,
We've had all of it, right? Vinyls, tapes, CDs, MP3s, streaming, back to fucking vinyls. Full circle.
It's full circle. A bit like fashion.
Could be a perfect circle.
Cool.
Speaking of Tool before, perfect circle.
There's
There's
a
a link.
segue.
Anywho, the way we consume music, all of us, has changed dramatically over the decades, and it has. From vinyl records and cassette tapes to CDs, MP3s, streaming platforms, each format has reshaped how we listen to music. Now, millennials, like Chris and I, born between 81 and 96, uniquely experienced this full evolution from playing records and tapes in childhood to adopting CDs, MP3s, and ultimately the way the world is now streaming. That makes us, the millennial generation, the first generation to witness the complete shift from analog to digital. And from ownership to on-demand access. So we say that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Like physical stuff to digital, fake stuff.
Yeah. You actually used to own music. Now you'd physically own it. Now it's
just
out there in the ether doing whatever.
Some
it does.
people like that.
Yeah, I like having something physical. So talking of something physical, not Olivia Newton-John here, we're talking about vinyl records. So the beginning of recorded music. So vinyl records invented by Emily Berliner in 1887. 1887, just a few years ago.
A while ago.
Replaced earlier cylinder formats. In 1948, Columbia introduced a 12-inch LP, that's the 33.5 RPM, old school spinning disc, offering longer playtime, while RCA Victor followed with the 7-inch single, the 45 RPM. Vinyl dominated the music scene through the mid-20th century until cassette tapes began gaining popularity in the 1980s for their convenience and portability. That was a big thing.
And fair enough. You can't take a vinyl record with you everywhere you go. And just so you know, RPM, revolutions per minute.
Yeah. Yep.
For our listeners, people don't know this
They
stuff,
don't.
right?
Oh, I
They
thought
don't
you
know.
knew. Sorry, guys.
Oh, well, they don't know.
Yeah.
They just don't know.
How fast it spun. And
Yeah, and you change the speed for different sizes. Anyway, not
Anyway.
portable at all. But cassette tapes, that's music on the move.
it
Introduced
is.
by Philips now, I said this earlier, in 1963, cassette tapes revolutionised personal listening with their compact design and record features. Like, you couldn't record on a vinyl,
no.
but you can on a tape. Their popularity soared with the release of the Sony Walkman. 1979 they put that
The
out, Chris.
Walkman, yeah.
It enabled private listening on the go. So you'd see, people now would see that in films and things. People with the headphones on, walking around, and they had a little Walkman. Those CDs overtook the cassette in the 1990s. But cassettes have been a niche thing amongst people. There's a revival. People still collect tapes. And indie artists often release their music on cassette tapes. Still. They're still around, just not as popular.
I remember when you used to play it and the tape used to, get saggy and you have to sit there and wind them up and
Get a pencil.
and
jam
wind
it
them
in,
up.
turn it.
Yeah, for kids who don't know, that missed out. That was a big experience.
It was a terrible fucking experience.
was,
Your tape got ruined, you pull it out,
It'd
and
be
it's all
wrong,
hanging out.
yeah,
You're going,
get eaten by the tape player. Terrible.
And it would never sound the same again.
No, it wouldn't. You'd have this weird little distortion through that
Wobbly.
part of it. Yeah,
It'd be
through
wobbly.
through the tape. Next we had was compact disc.
Yeah.
The digital upgrade. So this was
My
moving on
favourite.
from moving on from cassettes.
Yeah.
So CDs arrived in 1982 through a Sony and Philips, offering clearer sound and greater durability than the analog formats. Well, again, I thought CDs were pretty good compared to cassettes, obviously. The 1984 launch of the Sony Discman, 1984, brought portability to CDs. So in the old days, CD players were big, massive, heavy things.
Yeah.
CD released the Discman, massive. It was everywhere again too.
Like the Walkman,
Like the Walkman,
but
yeah.
for CDs.
Well, that's my next point. So just as
Yeah.
the Walkman had for tapes, this is what the Discman did for CDs, basically.
Did you have a Discman when you were
I had a
kid, Chris?
Discman, yeah. I had a Discman.
Do you love how it would skip and they'd have the little
If you-
anti-skip thing?
yeah.
And they'd have the little clip, but it
It didn't really
that
work.
never
Nah,
worked.
It never worked.
No.
So by the 1990s, CDs were the dominant music format.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely they were, because they were quite cheap and everywhere. In Australia, local manufacturing began in the mid-1980s with Distronics in Victoria, boosting availability. Retailers like Sanity, remember Sanity?
Sanity. There's still a few Sanity stores around, I believe.
HMV, Brushes, JB Hi-Fi, who's obviously around, and Woody's Music helped fuel the CD boom.
Woody's Music is in Kingston, or Woodridge,
Woodridge,
Woody's
yeah.
in Woodridge in Queensland.
Still around.
No, it's gone,
Oh.
long since gone. But one of the guys from Savage Garden used to work there.
Is that right? Yeah.
Savage Garden's an Australian pop duo from the late 90s. And one of the guys, I don't know which one, used to work at Woody's. And Woody's was like a family-owned CD store when CDs were the deal.
The deal.
They were the deal.
The deal.
But they weren't for long because the MP3 comes in, right? MP3s, music goes digital. The MP3 format was developed in the early 90s and made it possible to compress music into smaller files with minimal loss of quality. This enabled large digital libraries for easy sharing. Software like Winamp, I remember Winamp,
Winamp, yeah.
iTunes, still around, and devices like the iPod. Now it's iPhones
Phones,
and everything,
yeah.
but transform music listening, shifting the industry away from physical formats towards digital ones. It was the start of making your music something that you could store as a digital thing, and you didn't have to have a physical item.
Well, you didn't
listen
have to
to
carry
it.
a Discman or a CD. It was just
Yeah. It becomes simpler. I get that
Simpler.
it's simpler, but
Yeah.
we're fans of the physical stuff. But that's what MP3s they did for us, or did for everyone, really.
They did, yep. Which moved us into streaming. So this is really the new form. So streaming became the dominant form of music consumption in the 2000s, offering instant access to millions of songs without the need for downloads or physical media. Platforms like Pandora in 2000, Spotify 2008. I mean,
Pandora.
Everybody knows Spotify.
Well, I hope you do.
you do.
You're listening to this on Spotify. I would like to think you are.
Apple Music, of course, had every song under the book there. Changed the landscape with curated playlist, smart recommendation, and subscription-based access, replacing previous models of ownership.
Digital stuff. I mean, look, you can have an iTunes library that has a million records on it.
Yeah.
You can't really own a million records.
No.
Where are you going to put them? So I can
And
see
what's
a
it cost?
positive.
It's cheap, right? It's so cheap.
Yeah, I mean the subscriptions are what they are now, and I don't I don't hate the fact that it exists as that digital streaming. Like, I'm not upset about that at all. But I personally like a physical copy of things. But I do like the access, right?
Oh, the access, yeah, that's a huge selling point.
And things that are long gone, the stuff that we loved and we still love.
Yeah,
you can get them and listen to them at any time, even if you don't have a copy at home for your CD player or your record player or your tape player. Like if you're going to listen to War of the Worlds,
Jeff. So weird you said
Jeff
that.
Wayne's War of the Worlds.
Right,
dun, dun, dun. The chances of anything coming from Mars are 1,000,000 to 1. They said.
That's again. Look it up, kids.
That was a massive vinyl. Like people's parents in our generation, they all had a copy of Jeff Wayne's War of the World, and then it became a CD and a tape, and it was like a double tape, so it was massive, or a double CD, and it was massive. Now you can go on Spotify. Just go look at Jeff Wayne's musical version of War of the Worlds.
But you don't have the cool artwork in the album. That's the thing.
And that's it.
Thing,
that was one of the first albums where you had so much
cool
visual art. But there's a comeback for visual art and vinyls and things.
Yeah.
There's a comeback.
There is.
Despite digital dominance, vinyl has been strongly revived in the early 2000s. Audiophiles, collectors, and artists embrace that rich sound. It does have a different sound to digital music.
It does, yeah, it does.
But the thing is, I think in recent vinyl releases, is they're using the digital master of an album and just pressing it to vinyl.
I see, yeah, right.
Which I think kind of defeats the purpose. But independent labels now, musicians, they like to release things on vinyl, and then you have a code to download the music, so you can have a digital version and the physical vinyl, which I quite like. Today, vinyl coexists with the digital formats in that way, proving that there's still a place for analog in the modern music world. I don't disagree with that statement. I think that's pretty true. To me, although digital music is so convenient, it's so cool to have all those streaming things, Chris, right? It's fantastic, but you can't beat a physical CD, a physical tape.
I put it in perspective of photos. It's like everything's digital, but to have photos, same thing, right? You want to have physical copies of something. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that physical is the best.
Yeah, physical is the best.
It's the best. And speaking of the best, it's time for the top 10 countdown.
Now it's time for a top 10.
Awesome. Thanks, Barnsey. Thanks, Tina. In this top 10, we're going to list the top 10 highest grossing albums of the 1990s. So what we're going to do, it's based on worldwide sales, right? So take it away. What's number 10?
Sales. A couple of my personal favourites in here, among other things. So number 10 is Music Box by Mariah Carey, released in 1993. Sales, 30 million of these things got sold. Mariah Carey's third studio album solidified her status as a pop icon back in those days, featuring hits like Hero. I mean, one of your favourites, you're always talking about it. And of course, Dream Lover.
Dream Lover, so come dreamy. Rescue me. Come. Speaking of being rescued, here's number 9. It's Titanic, music from the motion picture. I mean, some of those people got rescued, right?
Yeah, 2 or 3, I think.
I don't know.
Yeah,
James Horner. So it's the soundtrack, including Celine Dion's "My Heart Will Go On." It also sold around 30 million copies, and it was the soundtrack, obviously, for that film. Massive hit, though, that Celine Dion track.
Interestingly, that's very interesting you say that, because number 8, let's talk about Love, Celine Dion, released
also
in 1997.
97.
Also 97. Funny that, sales around about 30 million. So this album includes the global hit My Heart Will Go On, which you could not escape if you tried, and showcases Dion's powerful vocals across a range of ballads and pop songs.
You couldn't escape it, like you couldn't escape a sinking Titanic. Number 7, Gold, greatest hits. ABBA, 1992. So an ABBA album, a 70s pop 4-piece, had the number 7, the highest selling album of the 1990s in 1992.
It's hard to believe that.
That's bizarre. 32 million copies. It was a compilation of their best songs. Well,
that's probably why.
It's dubious. Yeah. It introduced their Swedish pop group's music to a new generation. Lucky us, right?
That generation found
We were so lucky.
Loved it. Number 6. Oh, my God. Falling Into You, Celine Dion again.
She's back.
1996. Sales 32 million. Featuring hits like Because You Love Me.
I remember that one.
Great song. This album won the Grammy Award for Album of the Year.
I bet it did.
Yeah.
Number 5, one of your top 5.
It was, yes, it was.
Metallica's Black Album, Metallica, 1991. 33 million copies.
Yeah, it was a good
And it propelled Metallica into the mainstream. We know that. End of Sandman. It's a fucking cracker.
It's a banger, yeah.
Obviously. And you know what? 33 million, that's a lot of sales, and I'd believe every word of that. There you go.
Now, this one here was a big album, and it really, I don't know, Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette in 1995.
Yeah.
33 million copies.
I like that album.
Yeah, I didn't. Only because it was
One of
overplayed.
Canada's finest.
Yeah, one of Canada's finest.
Yeah.
To be sure. No, that's Irish. Silly me. What am I talking about?
Sorry,
This breakthrough album features raw, emotive tracks like You Ought to Know and Iconic.
No, ironic. Isn't it ironic?
Yeah, it's moronic.
Isn't it moronic? Isn't it? It's ironic.
It's a little moronic.
You know, he played drums on her tour.
Some guy from a little band.
Some guy from Taylor
Yeah.
Hawkins.
Yeah, that
the
guy.
late Taylor Hawkins. He wasn't late then, he was early then.
He was
but
early. The early Taylor Hawkins.
He was a beast, wasn't he? What a shame. That's another one of those bloody things. Anyway, number 3, Come On Over. Shania Twain, 1997. She feels like a woman.
Shania, yeah.
40 million copies.
Yeah, she was hot back in these days too.
40 million. She would blend country and pop together to create this album. It became a best-selling, actually the best-selling country album of all time, according to Slick Mix research.
Okay.
Really?
Didn't that get beaten by Beyonce's
No, country.
Cowboy Carter? Isn't that a country album, apparently? Apparently. Very dubious. I think there's some... Yeah.
I'll take Shania over her any day of the week, mate.
100%.
Anyway.
Coming in at number 2.
Here we go.
Backstreet's back, baby. Millennium by the
One of
Backstreet
your
Boys.
faves.
1999. Had their posters, had everything signed from these guys, had the haircut. Love the Backstreet Boys. 40 million copies sold, featuring hits like I Want It That Way. This album marked the peak of the boy band's global popularity. Who was your favourite? Who was your favourite boy? That guy? That guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, mine too.
I can't even think of any of
Yeah,
the
mine
names.
too, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, they're all awesome.
Number 1, the top highest grossing album of the 1990s. It's the Bodyguard soundtrack.
Okay,
Whitney Houston, 1992. 45 million copies.
it's pretty good.
I Will Always Love You. Chris?
Huge song. Huge song. I know.
Yeah. Best-selling album of the decade. Look,
I wouldn't
it was
have
a
thought
big
that.
film too. It was a
Yeah.
pretty big film. Kevin Costner and
The Kev.
and Whitney.
The Kev.
The Kev,
Yeah,
the original
The
Kev.
Kev.
Look,
Okay.
they achieved incredible success, right? Like massive success. But I think personally, their impact on music, it's dubious, right? Like ABBA's The Compilation, Celine Dion, as great as Celine Dion's voice is, like basically 3 albums in this lot. I think we need some honourable mentions. So I've put together a list here of culturally significant albums from the 90s.
Yeah.
And I'll let you take it away with the first one, because I've already spoken about it before.
You've spoken about this album at length.
Hit me,
of
Will.
course, it's Nirvana's Nevermind from 1991. 30 million sales. Why does this album matter? This album spearheaded the grunge movement, and it really altered the landscape of rock music. Smells Like Teen Spirit became an anthem for our generation.
Well, multiple.
Yeah,
Multiple generations. And
multiple.
it's still fucking kicks ass, right? Alright, the next one we have here on the list is The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill
Yeah.
from 1998. Obviously Lauryn Hill's album. Around 20 million was sold. It's a groundbreaking blend of hip-hop, R&B and soul. It won 5 Grammys and remains a
Grammys,
blueprint
yeah.
for introspective, socially conscious music. It was a big record.
Was a big record,
I
yeah.
can think of the album cover in my mind. I know the tunes, but I'm not particularly a big fan of Lauryn Hill or that type
neither.
of music. But yeah, that was a big
At that
album.
time it was, yeah.
Yeah, big album.
Next up was OK Computer by Radiohead in
Great album.
1997. So sales did 10 million. So why does this one matter? They're not a massive commercial juggernaut.
No.
It was critically hailed as one of the most innovative and important rock albums ever made. So yeah, they had a good run there for a couple of years.
It's a lasting impact, isn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
All right, here's one. 1995's What's the Story? Morning Glory by Oasis. That was
big.
huge for a
It
bit.
was big, yeah.
They were bigger than the Beatles.
Apparently so.
Well, 22 million sales, that's probably not bigger than the Beatles, but it matters because the Britpop band, their landmark album, had some tracks on it that were huge. Wonderwall. Wonderwall.
Again, couldn't escape that song, could you?
I mean, What's the Story,
Overplayed.
Morning Glory, the actual song is good too. And then Don't Look Back in Anger. Yeah? That was a good one too.
Banger of
It
an album.
defined that UK
British
mid-90s
pop,
rock,
yeah.
Brit-pop sound.
Well, who
Great
was that?
record.
There was the British pop thing with
Bush.
Oasis, Bush, and oh man, I can't think of his name. It's escaped me.
Morrissey.
No,
I don't.
not Morrissey. Blur.
Oh, Blur,
Blur.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Blur.
Yeah. That was a bunch of good bands, a good scene.
Yeah.
And Oasis, they were the top of that.
Our little mate coming in next was Mickey Jackson in 1991
Mickles.
with Dangerous. Oh, Mickles. Dangerous. Dangerous for children or just dangerous in general.
Oh.
So, sales, 32 million.
That's it. We're done. We're getting
Why
kicked off
does
here.
this one matter, Sean? Why does it matter? So, although not as iconic as Thriller, you couldn't top Thriller. Greatest, hugest, biggest album.
It's the highest selling
Yeah.
album of all time. I think we all know that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
This album was still marked a major era in Jackson's career, featuring the groundbreaking videos like Black and White. He always did really cool videos. So,
I mean,
yeah,
the
huge
black and white
album.
video had that. It was the first time I saw that sort of CGI where the
It's like
faces would change.
Yeah, it's like Matrix stuff. Yeah.
That was cool.
That
Actually,
was
at the
cool.
time, I think people were like, "How the fuck did he do that?" It
Yeah.
was so
Had
mind-blowing.
Flash playing on it.
mind-blowing.
It was cool.
Here's one of my favourites. Not really, but I can see why it's here. It's The Score by the Fugees, 1996. It sold around 22 million copies. It helped push hip-hop into the mainstream with the hit Killing Me Softly, which is not their song.
No,
that's
cover.
That's a cover. But it blended rap with soul. And I think, as people who aren't into that kind of music, Chris, you can't...
Talking about, I mean, again, I'm a huge Diddy fan. I said this earlier.
Jesus. Yeah, I know. You're
Milli
you
Vanilli,
just
yeah.
you just like baby oil.
I love Baby
He just
Oil.
likes baby oil.
Yeah.
Look, I can see why that album would be culturally significant. Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate that record. It just wasn't
didn't.
my
I didn't rate it.
preference. But here's another one, and you've already spoken about it, but you could talk about this one for days,
Another one.
couldn't you?
I could, yeah. So I spoke about this one. So this is Pearl Jam's 10, released in 91, 13 million copies. And why it matters, it was a cornerstone of the grunge era. So the early 90s were absolutely dominated by grunge. Huge songs, big album, and it really cemented Pearl Jam in rock history.
That voice that I just did, though, that's almost the same as James Hetfield, too, so it doesn't really matter.
It could have been James. Yeah,
Or even
who
Chad
knows?
Craig.
Well, it could have been Craig. It could be the
The enunciation where... Anyway, look, they didn't top the charts, those ones. They didn't quite get there, but they weren't far,
Big albums. All
sales-wise,
big
they
albums.
weren't far away from that top 10. They were almost there. But they influenced, like, music trends and future artists. Like, they had a big impact, right?
They did, yeah.
They were culturally significant. And, like, some of those albums...
Still great today.
they still hold up. They're still amazing. They still have a place in modern society. But I think we're being really nice now. But I reckon it's time for a fight.
It is time for a fight.
Let's get it on. Fight time.
Fight on. It's time for verses.
That's right, Mick. It is time for a fight. It's time for verses. So it is fight time, Chris. Today's verses, we've put two iconic Australian music programs against each other. And we'll see which one comes out on top. We're looking at Recovery from the ABC back in the mid-90s against Video Hits, been around forever and a day.
Oh, yeah. Two big shows back in the day, weren't they?
So, yeah.
Yeah. So Recovery was an Australian television music and youth culture program that aired on the ABC. So that's the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. From
Like the BBC,
like
the Australian
BBC,
version
yeah,
of
the
the
Australian
BBC
version,
for our
basically.
international listeners.
So it only aired for 4 years between 96 and 2000, but I was surprised by that. I thought it was a little bit longer.
I
to be
did
honest.
too. I
Yeah.
thought it went for at least maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah.
But yeah, 4.
I
Okay.
would have thought so. So it was broadcast live on Saturday mornings, primarily targeting teenagers and young adults. So that's really
That
what
was
that
us around
it
the
was
time.
us. Yeah, it was us. We were the target market. So key features was a focus on music, of course. So the show was best known for its strong emphasis on alternative and indie music. It featured live performances, so that was a big part of the show. Music videos and interviews with local and international artists. So it's really cool. They'd come on, they'd sit down, do an interview, play some music.
And they were pretty funny. It was
yeah.
like funny stuff.
It was a really laid-back sort of TV program.
Yeah, it
right?
was good.
Really
a
laid
bit like
back.
this rubbish.
Yeah, pretty much like this. The
But
host,
better.
but better, of course, but better. The hosts, over the years, it had several hosts, but most notable, of course, was Dylan Lewis. Everyone loved Dylan back in the day. He was quirky, he had an energetic style, and he became synonymous with the show. So you can really... The show was Dylan, let's be honest. He made the show, I thought.
Yeah.
Segments, aside from the music, Recovery included skits, interviews, as we mentioned, and discussions on youth culture, art, film, and current social issues. It often had a chaotic and unpredictable feel to it, reflecting the live format.
Yeah.
So there was a few times I remember you'd watch it and obviously things didn't go to script. But
Shit would blow up or
shit would
break.
blow up.
Or,
That's what made the show so cool.
you know, they'd be playing guitar and a live performance stops working.
It was pretty loose format, let's be honest. But
that made it fun.
That's what made it fun, yeah. It was really fun. And youth culture, big premise on youth culture. So the show became a cultural touchstone for young Australians in the late 90s, offering a platform for alternative voices and creative expression at a time when such spaces were limited, especially on mainstream TV. So what was the legacy of this show, Recovery? So although it ended in 2000, Recovery remains fondly remembered for its authentic representation of youth subcultures and for launching or supporting many careers in the Australian music and entertainment scenes. It is now considered a cult classic for its nostalgic icon and of the late 1990s television era, basically. So it was a great TV show, in my opinion.
There was a lot of bands, like local bands that would go on there. Like Tism, I remember were a band that we didn't. You didn't know much about Tism.
No.
Tism stands for This Is Serious, Mum.
Again, look those
There you
guys
go.
up. Pretty cool.
Yeah, there's some wild
Pretty
shit
cool.
there. Tism's out of control. But I remember that being on there a lot, and there was lots of live acts, you know, Jebediah and Silverchair.
Jebediah, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Great
Jebediah.
bands, great local bands,
stuff.
and they would have good interviews.
Yeah.
But
Who were they competing
There
against?
was
Who
another
did they
show
who
that
did
would
they
run on
compete
Saturday
with?
mornings on Channel 10 called Video Hits. Now, Video Hits was a long-running Australian music long-running Australian music television show that aired on Network 10 from 87 to 2011.
Whoa.
That's 24 years.
Yeah, right.
So 20 more years than Recovery. So
yeah.
you might think this is a bit unfair. But, hear me out. It was one of the country's most enduring music programs. That's fair. It had a music video countdown format. Now, we like a countdown, don't we, Chris?
We do like
We love a
countdown.
countdown.
Love a
That's
good
what
countdown.
Video Hits kind of was about. The show primarily featured a countdown of the most popular music videos in Australia based on chart rankings and was often compared to international counterparts like MTV and Top of the Pops. So it was kind of Australia's answer to those
Version of
big
that, yeah.
shows or big channels. And it was on Saturday and Sunday mornings, but eventually just became Saturdays, I believe. It was a weekend staple for some people. The Sunday edition was basically just the top 40. So it was like a rehash of what was on the Saturday show, but just the top 40. Over the years, Video Hits had a rotating lineup of hosts. None of them you'd remember. There's Axel Whitehead, Fuzzy, and Virginia Lett. I do know who those people are, but if you aren't an Australian millennial, those people are absolute zeros. Even more zero than Chris and I.
Even more, yeah.
Right? Now, the show was hosted for most of its early years without presenters. Much better. It relied on just voiceover intros and video transitions showing the clips, right? There were some live performances and interviews in the later years in the 2000s. Again, the artist interviews and live performances, that wasn't the start of it. They didn't do that for a long time. That had been done for a long time before that. But they did have the viewer interaction with contests,
Yeah.
SMS,
Yep.
Online phone things. Pay 87 cents a minute to call up and tell them your favourite P. Diddy song.
Baby, I was back, baby.
Baby, I was back. Family friendly though, so there was no
It
P.
was.
Diddy. It was family friendly, had mainstream appeal. Unlike Recovery, which we just talked about, it was more mainstream, right? So it featured the top 40 hits, like I said, across all the genres: pop, rock, hip hop, dance, broad family orientated material. Brought that kind of audience. The legacy of Video Hits is had a major influence on Australian pop culture, and it did, in the sense that it gave young kids access to top 40 music, and it was easily accessible, mainstream. It was a pre-YouTube kind of thing, right? So you had it before all the digital formats you do now. One of the ways that people could watch music clips regularly. If it wasn't on other shows that we'll get to, it was on Video Hits. If it was popular, it was on Video Hits. The show was cancelled in 2011, right? And that was due to the consumption of media and the way that people would listen to music, so online stuff, as you sort of touched on before. Its cancellation marked the end of a traditional music video programming on free-to-air TV in Australia.
It's a shame those programs disappeared, right?
We don't have it really anymore, do we?
They were pretty
We don't
cool.
have anymore. So let's compare the two. Let's pit them against each other. We've given a summary. Go ahead with Recovery there, Chris. We've got a few key points here.
So features of Recovery. So it was out on the ABC, as we mentioned earlier.
Yep.
Years active. Again, there's only 4 years, 96 through to 2000. So it didn't have it was very short-lived. But again, really had a big presence in Australian TV. Broadcast time was Saturday mornings. It was a live show, as we mentioned, the format. So really targeted youth-orientated variety music show with performances, interviews, skits, that kind of thing. Host, of course, Dylan Lewis. I mean, no one else was worth mentioning, really. And the music focus was alternative, indie, and local music scene. Really.
Whereas, on the other hand, you had video hits on Channel 10 from 87 to 2011, that whole 24 years, Saturday and Sunday mornings, pre-recorded music videos, countdown-based chart rankings. There were those range of hosts I mentioned. It was mainstream top 40 stuff. But the audience was different.
It was, yeah.
Like, Recovery was looking at teens,
yeah. It was more commercial video hits, right? Like it was
definitely
the tweenies and yeah.
Yeah, it was a general public feel. It was kind of a this is what's on the radio. Yeah. Enjoy. And then Recovery was like following on the back of what was on stations like Triple J. And you would listen to that alternative music. And the fact they had live performances, I know video hits transitioned to that at later times. Towards its end.
It laid that foundation.
And they were bands.
Yeah.
Like when you say a live performance on video hits, it's a mimed act of a pop star pretending to sing their song to a studio audience, whereas Recovery had fucking real bands playing the song, and they would fuck up and be terrible. And sometimes you'd be like, "Oh well, Friends Will Rom, they were shit."
Yeah,
but they're cool because they were shit, right? Yeah. And they would have like I remember in 99, I think it was, they'd have Courtney Love was on there from Hole. They'd have Marilyn Manson and international acts. And I know there was international acts on video hits, but again, they were just doing a mime act.
As a watered down version.
I think so. So as far as a cultural impact, I think Recovery is probably bigger as far as youth culture.
Oh, 100% agree. Yep.
And video hits was just a formula.
It was a formula. Trying to apply to everyone. Where Recovery was really focused on sort of. That, as you said, so more that
who gets your victory, Wibbles?
Oh, 100%. It's going to Recovery. 100%.
Yeah, I can't really fight
Can't
you
give
on
it
that
a video hits now.
I think it's a pretty... pretty clear cut victory for Recovery. Look, that doesn't mean video hits was bad. I think video hits had its place, being a family-friendly chart-based countdown show. I think what it did was it brought the videos of the popular songs to kids that wanted to see those. But if you wanted something a little more edgier, right? Mm-hmm. A little more, I don't know, fun, kind of quirky, Recovery was the way to go.
Ticket, yeah.
I think our victory goes to Recovery.
It does, yeah, I agree.
Victory, Recovery. But before we finish this episode of Versus, I do have a couple of special mentions. Countdown and Rage.
Yeah.
Rage is, I think it's gone
legendary.
Now, but everyone loved Rage. We grew up on Rage too. Kind of like video hits, countdown type stuff. It was a similar thing, but Countdown and Rage, right? Let's have a quick summary of those. Countdown was a groundbreaking Australian music television show that aired in the ABC from 74 to 87. So we kind of missed Countdown, but it's the precursor to all of this stuff. Yeah. And it played a pivotal role in shaping the Australian music industry and youth culture at that time. Now, our parents' generation was more into Countdown, and it was hosted by Molly Meldrum. Right? Who we would know better from Molly's melodrama on Hey Hey It's Saturday. Do yourself a favour. Cowboy hat. Molly's quite old now.
He is, yeah. He's getting right.
Hang in there, Molly.
Hang in, Molly.
Hang in there. He's been unwell as well, I believe. But look, Countdown had music video clips, interviews, and live performances, often mimed, but it was the start of that kind of thing. And it was instrumental in launching the careers of a lot of big Australian artists that we grew up with, like INXS, Kylie Minogue, Men at Work, John Farnham, Jimmy Barnes, or Cold Chisel. And it had a mix of like live show stuff mixed with like, the film clips, much like Rage. And that brings us to Rage. Now, Rage, also an ABC program. Chris, you would have watched a shit ton of Rage.
I love Rage, yeah. I used to look forward to that. So, as I said before, Rage, short summary, so Rage is a legendary show in Australia here. So, it was a music television program that was aired on the ABC, as Sean mentioned, from 87, making it one of the longest running shows of its kind in the world. So it broadcast music videos, all night long, essentially. All night long. Primarily on Friday and Saturday nights with minimal interruption. So there was no
back-to-back clips.
Back-to-back. It was just music just pumping out 24/7.
Yeah.
No host or commentary, just back-to-back clips, as we said. So on Saturday nights, it features guest programmers. Remember those? So often artists or bands that would come in who would introduce and curate their favourite music or videos. So it was a little presentation where, for example, Red Hot Chili Peppers might be on, and they would give you a list of, hey, what was influential for you, and they'd give their list of songs.
Do you remember they'd always, when they'd come onto Rage, any of these international groups, I don't know if you remember, they'd always pull out their favourite Australian clips.
Oh, they'd always throw a bunch
of Australian. They'd always be like AC/DC or In Excess.
There's always
you'd be like, dude, we know these ones. Like, can you put...
It's the only ones they knew, so they just threw them in. I think the programmer put it in there. Yeah. So it was known for its unfiltered presentation, deep dives into music genres, and support of both mainstream and underground artists. So it it was very eclectic, had this wide range of musicians on there. Rage has become a cult favourite, of course, and it was an important platform for Australian and international music.
Rage was great. Was Rage.
Yeah,
Everyone loved Rage.
Rage.
Shut up. Rage. That was the joke on.
You got to play that little clip there.
Yeah, we'll have to. But you see, there were all these programs, and then that sort of transitioned into music channels once Foxtel came about, and there was music
Andrew
channel.
G. Into the Andrew G.
Channel V.
Channel V.
You remember Channel V?
Yeah, I used to froth on it.
It was an Australian music channel from 95 to 2016. It's gone. There was the Foxtel one, pop, rock, alternative. That was everything. And they had good live stuff on there as well. It was hosts. There was all kinds of stuff there. Again, it was a bit like Recovery. It was like an evolution from Recovery. So I like Channel V.
So did I. I loved it.
There was another one, Music Max. You used to love Music Max too.
That was older, more like 80s, I guess.
70s even.
Yeah, 70s, 80s. Music Max was kind of more current, right?
Music Max was like I remember
Channel V.
Channel V was more current. Music Max was like the old school classic hits. It's funny because the stuff that was on Channel V when we watched it would now go on the Music Max, wouldn't it? Right?
100%.
And the last thing I wanted to touch on, not my cup of tea, but the Country Music Channel. Big one. They were on Foxtel from 04 only to 2020. Only 5 years ago they took away CMC. They used to have festivals. A CMC music festival is just a piss up, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
It's just a shit show, and everyone gets drunk and they go
go ride a ball.
It's all boot scooting, but you know what? They had a great time. And speaking of a great time, let's head to the tuck shop. Let's go get in line for a bit.
I'm hungry.
It's Tuckshop time.
It's a long way to the tuck shop if you want a sausage roll, Chris.
Very iconic words.
Yes, Bon Scott said those, I believe. AC/DC. It's an AC/DC classic, isn't it?
Yeah, the Dakar.
Well, you know, you want to get a sausage roll or a meat pie from the tuck shop, you could do that back in the day. But the middle's cold.
It was like a block of ice.
Potentially frozen.
Yeah, potentially. That was the hazard.
It's kind of the opposite of the last episode's food.
It was either freezing cold or
burning
lava hot.
But these ones, the pastries back in the day, no good. No good. Well, not that they were no good, they just weren't cooked. So anyway, but I don't just want to talk about those. I'm going to move on to something that's kind of a pastry and kind of an Italian cuisine. So it's a mix of the last. Delight. Yeah, look, pizza pockets. Do you remember the pizza pocket?
Yeah, everyone loved the pizza pocket back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, they were a popular Australian canteen tuck shop snack. No shit. Typically made from soft, doughy bread, and they were pockets filled with tomato sauce, cheese, and various toppings like pepperoni or ham. Hence, pizza pocket. Makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, handheld snacks, baked until golden and crispy, or served to you uncooked, either way. They were a convenient and tasty option for school lunches. Pizza pockets were beloved in the 90s and 80s.
They were, yeah.
They were when we were kids. I remember people buying them.
Everyone had them.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the pizza pocket, but...
What was your go-to? Mine was a sausage roll. My go-to
was a sausage roll, because like I said, it was a long way to the tuck shop to get a sausage roll, but pizza pockets are big. Pizza pockets are still around.
Well, I honestly haven't seen them. I wouldn't know even where to get them.
Neither have I, but apparently McCain still makes them in Super Supreme and Hawaiian. There you go. I'd like to try a pepperoni.
Where are these, Mick? Where are these?
Well, Mick reckons they're at Woolworths and Coles, and they're about $4,000 a packet.
Okay, righty, there you go.
You got to get another mortgage to buy a packet.
Mortgage.
Yeah, they're apparently still popular in school canteens. And my son has advised me that
Not to be.
he doesn't know a damn thing about pizza pockets. Never heard of them. Apparently, you can make them red hot in under a minute. That sounds like fucking rubbish. Absolute garbage. Don't think so. Having said that, I reckon I could go a pizza pocket now, but I don't know if I'd get through it. We might have to share it with a guest.
That's straight to a guest, eh?
Yeah.
Welcome to the jungle. We got
Now it's time to introduce our special guest.
Joining us again on Millennial Memories is Jayden. This is the first time that some people have heard Jayden's voice on the podcast, but if you go to YouTube, you'll see that we've interviewed Jayden before.
We're in for a real treat.
Yeah.
Real treat.
We first met Jayden, right, while we were on tour with the Grateful Dead in 1976, which was a decade before any of us were born. But not saying that Jayden's a time traveller, but he has travelled through time.
I was surprised that you were such deadheads, to be honest.
Wow. Yeah. It's not that surprising.
No.
Jeez, come on. All right. Now, Jayden's decided
sense, yeah.
to waste his afternoon hanging out with Chris and I and Slick Mick, and we've asked him to bring with him his top 5 favourite albums. But just like Chris and I's top 5 favourite albums that we did earlier, there is a stipulation, there are rules. And he knows the rules. But the rules are, it had to be released from your date of birth up to the year 2010 to fit in with the millennial spirit of what we're doing. Beautiful. We can all see where Jayden's going with this.
Yeah.
Now, so Jayden got that memo. He understood the brief, I hope, and he's brought a pile of CDs that are here for our YouTube viewers, and for those listening, he has a pile of CDs in front of him, and he's going to go through his top 5. So Jayden, 5 to 1, count us down.
Look,
Go.
I picked a certain time period to not clash with these guys and my teenage years. So first one, I've gone with Rilo Kiley, The Execution of All Things. This would have been, 2002. Jenny Lewis, great album. With Arms Outstretched is probably the most famously known song. Features in lots of TV shows. Alright, second one, number 4. The Get Up Kids, Something to Write Home About, 1999.
That's a good album.
1999. Yeah.
Gone with a bit of emo, a bit of pop punk. Holiday, Red Letter Day, I'll Catch You. Plenty of great songs on that album.
That is a good one.
Death Cab for Cutie, Transatlanticism.
Ooh.
You're talking early 2000s, talking the OC, talking emo.
Yeah.
Death Cab for Cutie, great album. Sound of Settling's
Why so sad, Jay?
known.
Why so sad?
Why so sad? I was a teenager, that's what you do.
Moody.
Yeah.
Talk about Moody.
Number
That's a good
2.
lead in. This
What
is
do we
probably the
got?
moodiest
Oh,
album
is
of
it?
all time. Cursive, with the album Cursive's Domestica.
It is Moody.
It is about Tim Cash's divorce. It's a super moody album. No real standout hits because this was a pretty unknown album at the time.
I was going to say, I don't think it wouldn't have charted
The Mar-
anywhere.
Nah,
It's a
definitely
pretty
not.
niche
Yeah.
thing.
The Martyr,
Yeah.
emo classic. Again,
That's a good song.
I had a very sad teenage life, apparently.
It sounds it.
So-
And we're talking sadness.
Number
and
1.
even sadder.
Number 1,
Oh, here we
Jay's
go.
top.
What do we got?
Bright Eyes. I'm wide awake. It's morning. This would have been 2005. Conor Oberst. Super sad. Super folky.
Fuck, do you need a hug,
Yeah.
mate? Oh.
Are you
Hey,
okay?
are you okay?
There's a movement made on the back of this.
Got some Saddle Creek representation here because that was at the time
Ah.
a big deal.
Wow, Jay, that's
Yeah.
that's a
Wow.
that's the most miserable top 5 we've ever done,
Well,
isn't it?
I think
But
so.
early
having said that,
2000s.
it's an emo top 5, but it's also like they're pretty influential albums in those genres, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Don't you think? And we're talking about influential. I want to segue to the Beatles are considered the most influential artists of all time by many, many people, right? Like, I think the most influential musical act probably is the Beatles, and I would find it hard for somebody to come along and say, no, that's bullshit, that's not true. But what we were going to do, or what I thought we might do just for shits and giggles, was give out a few more for different genres. Right? So the Beatles, I would say rock and roll. Just
And
rock
just
and
the
roll.
idea of a band.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to, just while we've got something here in the Millennial Man Cave, I've got, for our podcast listeners, you can't see it, but if you go to YouTube, you'll see I have here an exclusive photo with the compliments of your Mobil dealer. Mobil is a service station chain in Australia, and they've got It's not actually signed. It's like a reproduction signed photograph of the Beatles from about 1963 or 64. So I'll put that just
Look
here.
at those handsome young
Look at
devils.
those. I don't know whatever happened to those guys.
No.
But
They did a few albums.
They had a couple of
Yeah.
hits, I heard. Not sure. But look, I think everyone can say the Beatles, but let's go with some different genres. Let's try rap to
Rap.
start with. Now, we're not rap
This
fans.
is
as you're
all
probably-
you, Chris.
No, not. I mean, you know, a throwback. I mean, who was
All time, Chris.
All time back in the early '90s. Who was dominating music? It was, of course, our mate P Diddy, Puff Daddy.
Our mate.
I mean, he's our mate. He was there with Bad Boy for Life.
Didn't he throw some good parties?
I tell you what, to be at one of those parties. Whew, I tell you what, the white parties.
You've been?
No, I've never got the invite.
Getting out of them was alright.
I
Getting
never-
out of them not so
Yeah,
easy.
yeah,
Oh,
correct.
Jesus.
But P Diddy.
P. Diddy. I was
P.
going to go
Diddy.
Tupac or...
Nah, the P
Run
Diddy
DMC,
and
Beastie
who was
Boys?
his mate there?
LL Cool J?
No, not LL Cool J. It was Puff Daddy and
Oh, yeah.
his mate that he shot.
Biggie?
Biggie, yeah.
That's
Hugely
how you
influential.
do it,
He
Prince.
was massively influential in the early '90s. I would say, in terms of rap, he was one of those guys.
I
Hugely
feel that
influential.
one, but
Yeah,
alright.
yeah.
All
P.
right,
Diddy,
so we said...
Baby Oil.
Oh, man.
You know your rap.
Yeah, absolutely.
P. Diddy?
P Diddy.
P.
Well,
Diddy.
is it P Diddy or Puff? Yeah, P Diddy now, right?
Sean
Sean
Combs.
Combs.
Yeah, Sean Combs.
Puff
Okay,
Daddy.
okay.
Gives all Sean's a bad name.
Sean
He does.
Diddy.
Sean Diddy. Yeah.
Sean Diddle.
Diddle me Diddy.
Yeah.
Diddle me this.
Diddle me that. He's afraid of a
Can
big
I-
Diddy.
Alright.
You can. Go
Can I?
ahead. Go
Can I?
right ahead, mate.
I'm going to throw one that you probably weren't going to mention. Shoegaze. There's only one
Yeah, you're
band.
right. I wasn't going to mention
No.
Shoegaze.
No one does because, you know, shoegaze. But I'm going to go with My Bloody Valentine,
Oh, yeah.
the album
yes.
Loveless.
Yeah,
I'm just
okay.
going to throw that out now because really shoegaze peaked, existed, should have existed only for that one album.
And you're saying
And then,
very,
yeah.
very influential? Are you saying...
I think there's bands that use elements of that today, just not in the shoegaze
Would you not say
way.
that Weezer was one of the big influential emo bands, though? And then, of course,
With-
My Chemical Romance, right?
I would say Pinkerton, sure. I would go Sunny Day Real Estate.
Oh,
Yeah,
actually, yeah.
the album
that's pretty
Diary,
fair.
I think, is probably. I mean, if you want to go back further, Rites of Spring, big albums in the 80s. They were the first band called emo by the media. But yeah, Sunny Day Real Estate, album Diary, I would say. Jimmy Eat World with the new sort of emo.
Jimmy Eat World. Yeah.
I mean, we've all
As
heard
far as
the middle.
we'll call it alternative rock
Especially
music.
in the 90s, right?
You've got to go
90s,
Nirvana,
yeah,
right?
Early 90s for sure.
Don't you?
Yeah,
Like, I think
absolutely,
you do.
yeah.
I mean, I've already mentioned it previously in our top fives, but Nirvana's so influential. And then I think the flow-on effect of that, and a big part of it, I know he's not Flavour of the Month, but Dave Grohl, mate, the guy's in everything.
Literally.
Literally.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's how you
Good
kick
call.
goals. That's how you kick goals on
That's
Millennial
it,
Memories.
yeah.
That's what you do. That's what you do. You set it up, and he,
Knocks him down.
man.
Knocks him down.
But
Beautiful. Nice one.
in all seriousness, though, that's good. Like you think about Foo Fighters, and you think about even Queens of the Stone Age, and he's played for in all sorts of stuff.
He's an amazing drummer.
What's
And we're
what's
talking
that
about
been?
his links to
30
Paul McCartney alone.
Yeah.
Like Paul McCartney's the greatest living musician. I'm not saying technically he may not be the greatest living musician, but as far as sales and popularity,
But he's a throwback to like how many guys from the 90s are still around today. He's had a 30-year career, right?
Yeah.
Who else? I can't name one musician. He's still.
well,
selling
you too,
50
and I hate you too. Sorry for any listeners who love you too, but I'll tell you what, you two are a bucket of shit. But people
I
think
think
they're
they're alright.
Yeah.
you two.
Yeah.
See?
The
us
band.
Us two think they're
it's
alright.
Through the starving children.
But it's starving children.
I
you
know people love it, but I don't get it. And people would probably say,
But he's one of
they're
those rare
influential.
guys, right? He is.
Yeah.
He's a
And
Grohl,
two
yeah.
instruments too. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't just guitar and singing. Like
And-
he was an influential drummer as well, which is pretty big. Deal.
Very,
Yeah.
very, very good point. Yeah,
Two instruments to be
Yeah.
that important.
and he's played on so many already big acts have like got him to play on. Like even Bowie had him playing drums at one point for something. As soon as Nirvana ended, he played for Tom Petty.
Is that right? Yeah. I didn't
mean,
know that.
he played on Saturday Night Live,
Yeah, okay.
and he played in Tom Petty's band. Like, that's a pretty good backup gig, right?
Yeah.
Pretty good back.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and he's just been in so much. As far as like pop though, if we're going to go to pop, Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, undeniable.
I mean,
He's the king of pop,
Undeniable.
right?
Madonna, if you're
100%.
looking at that
Oh, yeah,
side
Madonna.
of pop.
Madonna's been. I mean, now she just looks like one of those Bratz dolls. Remember the Bratz
Oh,
dolls?
she's horrendous. Yeah.
What'd she do?
Horrendous. I don't
Just
know.
aged, love.
I
Like,
don't know.
She's
I
a
don't
beautiful
know.
lady in the day
Yeah.
and just
I don't
aged
know.
gracefully. Like, I mean, I'm not saying she doesn't have to do something or if she wants to doll herself up, but damn,
Yeah, it's weird.
It's
what
weird
she's
now.
done to
It's just
herself.
got weird.
Yeah.
But she
Alien-like.
was highly influential. What about country? That's another genre. What,
But closer to home, like Kylie Minogue, like I mean, she was quite,
Oh, yeah.
you know. I mean, she's
Kylie's big in the UK,
She, UK,
mate.
that's right. Yeah, huge career.
and she was awesome in Street Fighter, as we said last time.
Oh,
What a great
wasn't she
movie.
one? Yeah,
What a killer.
yeah.
They should make a Killer Instinct movie. I'm getting way off topic, sorry. Country, sorry, back to country.
Country.
You got any ideas for country?
How far back are we going though? 'Cause,
Billy Ray. Billy Ray Cyrus.
We only going to the 90s because if we're looking back,
No, go
Thanks.
back.
A little Australian guy,
Hank
John
Williams
John
would be
something.
nice.
You might know him.
Oh,
We had a cat, Bill the cat.
Johnny Cash would be something.
Oh, Johnny
I
Cash.
I know you're talking about John Williamson.
Yes, yes.
But I'm thinking
So
Johnny
Throwback.
I
Cash.
would go bloody Hank Williams.
That's a good one.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
When
I think he's the man.
Hank Williams was around before Johnny Cash
Yeah.
was
Right,
big, so
Johnny Cash covered a lot of his songs.
What about Dylan? Where would you go with Dylan?
Dylan, lyricism, giving hope to people who can write a song but can't sing for shit. He's your man.
Because he had a terrible. Oh, let's be honest, he can't sing.
But
for
he
shit.
could write
Yeah.
the best songs.
He
He just
could, yeah.
put those songs
Yeah.
into another artist, and it's their best
yeah.
song.
Well, I mean, Jimi Hendrix, All Along the Watchtower. People are
His
like, oh,
best
it's
song.
great. Well, Bob Dylan wrote that.
Yeah.
So,
So I think, yeah, in terms of that, like his influence on songwriting and lyricism
Yeah.
is massive. But
and all those artists, they all came up in an age, like, not all of them, but the artists like Bob Dylan and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. We haven't really talked much about the Rolling Stones on the podcast. You mentioned them at the
Beach
very
Boys.
start. Beach Boys. Yeah, big
Prince.
bands. Prince.
Controversy.
Oh, don't
yes.
get me started.
Don't. Yeah, don't get me started. Love my Prince.
Sexy motherfucker. But all those groups and those artists, I mean, their big thing that they always release these records, albums, and the release of an album is always a massive thing, right? And it's been that way for years. Now it's not like
No,
that.
not at
Now
all.
it's just,
Not
you
at
know,
all.
it's more song
Singles?
Yeah, it is.
but they used to, you know, records were the thing. And when you say record, our generation thinks of vinyl records more than albums, right? Because it's just terminology. Records, we've talked about it in the deep dive, but vinyl records were huge in the 60s and the 70s and all the rest of it, and they just died a death when CDs came out.
Yeah.
But Jayden, I know that you have a reasonably good record collection. What is it about records
love
that's
my
got
vinyls.
this resurgence? What is it for you? Because I fucking hate records.
There's a few things. I'm not going to be one of those people that says the sound's better because it depends on what.
But isn't that the big selling point?
No, because it depends on what system you're playing on. If you're playing on
Alright.
cheap, dodgy speakers, doesn't matter. I love vinyl because of the fact that it is a whole process. So you buy the album, and I'm still very much, and I think we'd all be the same, album people.
Yeah.
With
I'm not
physical,
a song-based
physical
person.
stuff.
Yeah.
I like albums as a whole.
I remember a lot of albums, you opened them, there was cool, all the lyrics
That's
were
right.
in them,
Yeah.
like there was posters.
Big gatefold image.
Which is why I love vinyls, because you've got the gatefold image,
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
got the lyric sheets, you've got the whole process of, you know, brushing down your vinyl, killing the static, playing a side, listening it from start to finish. The amount of times I've listened to an album that I thought I loved and thought, oh, this track I don't really listen to, that's the best track on the album. And I wouldn't have done that if I was on CD or, you know,
Yeah, you
I
kind
would
of-
have if it was on cassette because you have no choice, but...
You're kind of forced to go through the
a
whole.
playthrough, yeah.
And then,
yeah.
like, it becomes a thing, and bands do it now. They probably didn't do it too much late 90s, early 2000s, where, like, they produce a side of the record. Like, those 5 songs are supposed to complement each other, supposed to go together, and they talk about it as that's side A of the album.
Yeah, like
and the
track-
And then
B-side,
they
yeah,
have
yeah.
the next
Yeah.
side again. And when you get an album that's produced and created in that way, I don't think there's really anything better. But I do think it comes
that's a
down.
good point.
I do
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it comes down to what you can access, like, and
I don't know,
what
there's
makes you
something
happy.
tactile about it, like pulling it out, as you
I'm
said,
a
the
very-
process, right? Like you
Yeah.
put it on, you had to get the needle right, like there's
Yeah.
a process to
And
it.
you gotta brush
Yeah.
them first,
Yeah.
otherwise you're gonna get lots of clicks and pops. And sometimes those clicks and pops just add to the whole ambience of it.
It's nothing like when you drop the needle and you get that first 3 or 5 seconds of that.
Yeah,
that distinctive sound. That cracking. Yeah,
crackling sound is.
Yeah.
Gets me going.
I'm more into digital.
Anyways.
I'm more into digital than analog. But at the same time, like when I say digital, I mean like a digitally mastered CD. I'm into CDs, so I collect CDs, and I collect, as weird as it might sound, Jay, I think people collect first pressings of records. I collect first pressings of CDs.
Which is weird because CDs aren't.
Because they get reproduced, they get reproduced the same, and it's always the same. But it's more about the packaging, right?
Yeah.
So it's about that particular, the way that it's a physical thing.
And you can just hold it in your hand. It's a lot
I much
easier than a
prefer that.
vinyl.
I much prefer that.
The store, I do get that.
I mean, it's people
Cheaper too. Cheaper than vinyl.
People talk about the warm tones, and the authentic audio, and this is what they call audiophiles. Got to make sure you get that right. Audiophile.
There's certainly
audio.
a clarity when you listen to analog on a good system and you've got a good pressing.
That's the key.
There's a clarity that digital doesn't have because digital is obviously compressed and it's just there is a difference, but it all depends on what you're listening through. If you're listening to a CD on a $1,000 speaker set that's amazing, and you're listening to a vinyl record on a $100 speaker set that's dodgy, the CD is going to sound better no matter what.
Absolutely, kill it.
So it really just depends what you can access, and But
is it a nostalgia thing? Do you think?
It's a childhood thing for sure for me. Yeah. Like,
See, I had a couple of like 7-inch vinyls, like 45s when I was younger, and then they were all tapes, all CDs. So for me, it's not a nostalgic thing, the vinyl. I don't.
No, for me it's probably not nostalgic either because I was
younger
born in
than us,
1990. But
they were phased out largely by that point.
yeah,
well, there was a
late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
There's not many first pressings of albums because they didn't really do that. Whereas now
couldn't sell them.
They couldn't sell them, but now it's the other way around. Like there's not as many. Like I went to JB Hi-Fi today, and the CDs were dwindling, and every time I go, there's less and less CDs, and the vinyl collection is getting bigger and bigger.
People are getting back into it, right? They're finding that again.
People are buying physical music, and there's not many of us left. But if they're buying physical music, they're buying a vinyl because it's basically a CD on steroids. The packaging's bigger, everything's just more of a process, a thing.
The vinyls that I own are CDs that I have already bought, and I buy them as a vinyl. But I don't have a good stereo.
But you buy them because you have an attachment to those albums. So that's why you buy the vinyl too.
It's nice having that artwork too. A nice big, what is it, 12 by 12 kind of vinyl artwork. So, all right. Well, Jay, thank you for joining us on this episode of Millennial Memories.
Sure, you want me to stop because I could keep going.
I'm sure you could, and we all could, and we will once the camera stops rolling. Probably we'll still keep waffling on. But
albums, people, listen to albums, not just individual songs.
Yes.
Even on Spotify, I mean, you can listen to an album on Spotify. You can do it digitally. You don't have to buy the vinyl.
I mean, it depends on the artist, because some artists do produce just singles, but I don't know. If you listen to anything before 2010, listen to the album.
You young whippersnappers. All right. Listen, as I mentioned earlier, I know you're a time traveller. I'm looking forward to us going back in time.
I haven't even talked about cassettes.
No.
And
We've already covered that, mate. You're all good. But we are going to go back in time at some point again. We might go back and punch George Lucas so he doesn't make Jar Jar Binks or something, or stop Elon Musk from being an asshole. We'll do that. We'll have Jayden back again at some point, I'm sure. I'm positive. Unless people don't want him, then tell us in the comments. No,
that's very fair.
Yeah. That's fair. All right. Thanks again, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Now this is a story.
All right. Thanks, Will. This is a story. It's one of my favourites. I've been waiting for this. I've been leading up to this moment for quite some time in our podcast history. This is the story of John Farnham's Whispering Jack. And what a story it is. Released in 1986, John Farnham's Whispering Jack marked a pivotal moment in Australian music history. After years of fluctuating success, John Farnham's career was reinvigorated by this album, which blended pop, rock, and ballads into a cohesive and powerful sound. You're damn right it did. The standout single, You're the Voice, became the fucking best song ever. No, became a global anthem, resonating with both political and emotional messages, and propelled the album to immense commercial success, especially here in Australia.
Yeah. Massive Australian album. So, Whispering Jack spent 25 weeks at number 1 on the Australian charts, remaining in the top 10 for over a year. It was the first Australian album to be certified for 1.68 million copies sold domestically. I think that's still a record that stands today.
Yep.
The album earned ARIA Awards for Album of the Year and Best Male Artist, solidifying Farnham's reputation of one of Australia's most respected artists.
A significant milestone for Whispering Jack was that it became the first Australian artist's album to be pressed on CD. We mentioned that earlier, Chris.
Yes.
Manufactured at Distronics Australia in Braeside, Victoria, it marked the beginning of the shift from vinyl and cassette to CD as the dominant music format here in this country, and the transition reflected the growing global popularity of CDs in the 80s, which replaced those older formats. It was the first Australian CD pressed. There you go.
So it was strategic marketing by Glenn Wheatley. Whispering Jack surpassed initial sales expectations across vinyl, tape and the CD formats, further cementing its place in Australian music history. Its success not only marked a career-defining moment for Farnham, but also played a key role in shaping the Australian music industry during a time of significant change.
So John Farnham was kind of failing, I guess, in the late 70s.
Which is hard to believe, right? Yeah.
I mean, he was so massive in the late 60s and the early 70s, and then it all waned, and he went and joined the Little River Band in the early 1980s. And despite some great music, like for me personally, I'm a huge Farnatic. I know all the things there are to know about John Farnham, but there is one interesting Farnham fact that I think is really relevant, Wibbles, for this, what we're talking about now, this segment. He is the only Australian artist and one of the only artists worldwide to have had a #1 record in every decade since the 1960s. That showcases his enduring success. And here is a breakdown. I'll explain what I'm talking about. So in the 1960s, John Farnham, who was Johnny Farnham,
Little Johnny,
back then, he had the hit Sadie the Cleaning Lady. Okay, it's not the greatest song. It's a novelty tune. It was #1 though in 1967. There you go.
There you go.
And then obviously there was an album that followed. #1s. And then in the 70s, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, which is a bit of a Bacharach song, but it was a cover that he did. And that was a #1 hit in Australia. In the 1980s, we just talked about it. Whispering Jack, #1 with You're the Voice, which topped the charts, becoming one of Australia's best-selling albums. Well, Australia's best-selling local artist album.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Age of Reason, which was the follow-up in 1988 from Whispering Jack. That was the #1. The 1990s, Chain Reaction in 1990, and then there was the Anthology series in 1999. They all achieved #1 status in Australia. The 2000s, The Last Time, 2002, reached #1 in the ARIA Albums chart.
Wow.
Now, Farnham's the only Australian artist to achieve #1 album in every decade, like I said, since the 60s. The only other person to do it that I'm aware of, correct me if I'm wrong, comments people, internet people, was Cliff Richard.
Cliff Richard, yeah.
In the UK.
Cliff Richard, yeah.
Big Cliff did it.
Big Cliff.
But, yeah, nevertheless, Farnham's the only Australian to do it. Now, while he didn't get a #1 solo album in the 2010s or 2020s, he did top the charts with the late Olivia Newton-John, ONJ. Another shame, again. As a duet album called Friends for Christmas in 2016.
Oh, Friends for Christmas.
Yeah, look, I'm not a Christmas
The Christmas
guy.
album.
I love Christmas, but I don't like Christmas albums much. I don't know. You ever got any?
No Christmas albums. I think only the Tool Christmas album is the only one I have.
Oh, that's one of the best ones, the Tool Christmas album.
It's a great album.
Yeah, what's that called? You got any idea?
Tool Christmas album.
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, right. I was going to thought it was, something around candy and stinky candy, but we'll go on. In 2023, so only a couple of years ago, Finding the Voice became the highest-grossing Australian feature-length documentary of all time, surpassing $2.57 million at the Australian box office, and became the 4th highest-grossing Australian feature film overall. The soundtrack for that reached, guess what, #1.
Wow.
#1 in the 20s. Despite health battles, John Farnham's achieved that milestone, and he achieved another one this year in 2025 with his book, which was the Book of the Year, Audio Book of the Year, and Biography of the Year in the Australian Book Industry Awards for the memoir he put out, which is called The Voice Inside, which is a great audio book. I can highly recommend. Obviously, I'm a fanatic, as I said, but it's a great book. The story of John Farnham and Whispering Jack, I mean, overcoming adversity, he kind of lost all his money, lost all his riz, as they say.
Well, the Riz, lost the Riz.
Farnsey lost the riz, but I tell you what, Whispering Jack...
touch, he found it, didn't he? Yeah.
Holy shit, he found it.
He found everything he touched since 1980s.
He was massive.
Yeah, everything.
I mean, he was massive from Whispering Jack, probably to the, I'd say, early 2000s, and kind of just then was more adult-orientated rock, but people kept going. I went to the concerts. That's where I got these shirts from. Well, I didn't get that. This is from 1991, the one that Chris is wearing. But that was our story for story time. So
Australian icon.
Farnsey, one of the best.
Absolute icon.
Now it's time to be kind and rewind.
All right, it's time for Rewind. Something from the past that we missed. This time, it's actually a recommendation. Off the back of the last episode's Cheetah Men Rewind, we've been given the name Wesley Willis.
One Wesley Willis. I'm not sure how we missed this, but we did.
We did. Wesley Willis, from what Slick Mick has told us in his research, born in 1963, sadly passed away in 2003, was a uniquely prolific American outsider musician and visual artist known for raw, humorous, and often bizarre songs created using a Technics keyboard preset rhythms. Okay. Diagnosed with schizophrenia, Willis openly addressed his mental health struggles in his music, blending spoken word storytelling, surreal lyrics, and repetitive musical structures. Despite or because of his unconventional style, he gained a cult following in the 90s and early 2000s.
So there's a couple of songs that he's best known for. I want to run through a couple of them. So one of these best known tracks is Rock and Roll McDonald's. So that's his most iconic song. So it's humorous and it's commentating on the fast food and American culture.
Okay.
Next one, I Whoop Batman's Ass. What a blazer that is.
Apparently it's a fan favourite.
A fan favourite. It's quite absurd, but comedic lyrics.
All right.
Cut the Mullet is a call to action against outdated hairstyles. And Alanis Morissette, Kurt Cobain, and many others. Part of his hundreds of songs about celebrities and bands, all following a similar structure. What else has he got?
But the reason we were told about Wesley Willis is because of Cheetah Men. So in the previous rewind, we mentioned Cheetah Men Action 52. Apparently there is a song written by Mr. Willis called Suck a Cheetah's Dick.
Suck a cheetah's dick. I mean, it's...
Okay.
I could see Bob Dylan writing that, or Mozart as a composition.
Yeah, look, I thought it was the Beatles that wrote that.
Could have been,
Anyway, that's the reason we've been given the name. Apparently, Wesley ended most of his songs with a catchphrase which went, "Rock over London, rock on Chicago." And then a random corporate slogan. Okay. His work remains a memorable part of outside art and music history. Again, I have, in the 2000s, seen a clip of Wesley Willis. I kind of know who he is, right? I don't think you have.
Nah, I'd never heard of Wesley, no.
But goddamn, some of these titles, I don't know. And look, if we've got to listen to a song called Suck a Cheetah's Dick, well, apparently that's what we're doing. We're going to go and just listen to the song. We're not going to do anything else. Just not going to follow through with those words. But we're going to listen to some Wesley Willis.
Here's a bit of Wesley. Enjoy.
We'll come back.
Yeah, enjoy.
Rewind.
Sucker, I'm a shitty asshole. Sucker, panda bear, spermy nutsack. Sucker, slut bear's booty hole. Sucker, greyhound's musty ass motherfucker. Sucker, cheetah's dick. Sucker, cheetah's dick. Sucker, cheetah's dick. Sucker, cheetah's dick. Rock over London, rock over Chicago, Polaroid. See what develops.
All right, we're back. Wesley Willis. Is he a genius or is he a genius?
There's only one word to describe Wesley.
It's genius.
Is there any other way to describe him? Check out some of his content. It's quite amazing. So, what are you throwing to? What are you giving it,
Look,
Sean?
I don't know. Look, I don't know what I think. I'm a little bit
confused.
I'm confused. I don't really know much more. I don't know what to say. I'm actually a little gobsmacked. Look, I'm going to throw it over to Slick Mick. I think it's Wibblescope first. You can give it the score. I'm still reeling from Sucking Cheetah's Dicks. Wait, from hearing the song, Sucking Cheetah's Dick. It's got to go Wibblescope. Slick Mick, take it away.
Right. Crank up the Wibblescope. Okay, go ahead, Chris. Pull the lever and give us your Wibble score. How many Wibbles out of a possible 4? That's a top score with 4 Wibbles.
Okay, so we're back from the Wibblescope, and I'm giving it a 4, Sean. I'm giving it a 4. It was entertaining, it's lighthearted, and it's something you can sit there and just listen to for hours. So, yeah, I'm giving it a 4. I'm happy with that. Willis, get on board.
Wow.
Yeah. Nah, it's
so
a 4.
Hold on, Wesley Willis.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 4.
Gets 4 Wibbles.
Shit hot, yeah, shit hot.
Alright, Sean-o-meter.
What are you giving it?
Alright, go Slick.
Jumpstart the Sean-o-meter. Alright, go on, Sean. Push the button. Let's have your Shawnee score. How many Shawnees out of a possible 4? That's a dreadful score of only 1 Shawnee.
Yeah, I've given it a 1 Shawnee.
Nah, it's better than that. Come on, mate.
No, I just can't.
It's entertaining. It's lighthearted.
Okay, so in fairness, the man's schizophrenic, and he had a whole lot of other things going on. There's a lot of drama around Wesley Willis. I've given it 1 Shawnee because
disappointing.
It's not about the profanity. It's not about the fact that it's just, it is what it is. It's also that he's just put on his Technics keyboard rhythm, gone, boop, turned it on and gone, this'll do. And then just done the same thing every time for hundreds of songs. And just...
Are you saying he's not a creative genius? Is that what you're saying?
Listen, creative he's definitely creative. I'm not saying he's not creative. That's not fair. I think he's creative. I just think that as far as being good, no, it's a fucking 1. Like I can't stretch it. I can't do it. No, that was one hell of a rewind.
It was, yes.
Oh, I want to rewind that whole thing.
Go watch it.
Don't do it. Don't. Let's rewind our entire lives back about an hour, so I don't have to watch Wesley Willis. Terrible.
Do yourself a favour.
Oh, nah, I'm out. Time for our final thoughts. Let's go.
Here's our final thoughts.
Alright, we could go on for hours and hours about millennial music. There's so much we haven't covered, but unfortunately we do have to wrap things up. It was really cool to reminisce about some of the stuff we talked about. I enjoyed our top 5s. We learned a thing or two about different things, Wesley Willis, wow.
So where do we go with that?
We have a couple of questions again, don't we, Wibbles?
We do have a couple of questions. Earlier we spoke about a comeback, and here's another comeback king right here. So here we go. So Starfucker69 writes in again on Instagram, and he writes, he's going to kick Sean's ass so hard the next podcast wannabe will feel it. Now this one's directed to you, Sean.
Oh, clearly.
Okay,
Guile, thanks very much. Look, I've heard that speech before, and it sucked when Jean-Claude Van Damme did it. So, Starfucker69, go fuck yourself.
I like it. Okay, and you can leave us alone or keep writing in. Regardless, it doesn't matter.
Keep writing in. We like it.
Here's another one. Here's another one directed to you, Sean. So this is this has come through on X from
what have I done?
Ling May writes in. So
Ling
May. She writes. She would like to be the all beef patty between the sesame seed buns.
2 all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. It's a Big Mac.
It is a Big Mac.
Yeah. Thanks, Ling May. I don't know what to say about that, but
maybe she wants some Big
problem.
Mac. Okay, so
That's bizarre.
It is bizarre. But you can email us directly. Where can they email us?
Well,
directly,
Millennial Memories Podcast at gmail.com. One long word. It is long. Sorry. Millennial Memories Podcast at gmail.com is our email address. Now, on the next episode, yes, we're doing it again.
Always.
Of Millennial Memories, we'll be getting into the comic collection. Look, there are a lot of comics here. Not just the comics themselves, though. We're going to start talking about the companies that make them, the artists, the writers, trading cards, toys,
cards.
and the more well-known stuff, right? The cinematic comic universes, Marvel and DC. We're going to touch on all of those. Superheroes, man. Everyone loves superheroes,
Everyone
don't
does,
they?
yeah.
Of course they do.
Can't wait for that one. So, but that's it for this episode of Millennial Memories, and thanks for your continued support and for joining us on another nostalgic journey.
Thanks again for the support. More and more seems to pop up as we go along. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much. If you did enjoy the show, make sure to hit subscribe, leave us a review, give us comments, keep sending some questions. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Even if you didn't like it, shit, tell us.
Right in, Ling May. We want to hear from you again. So, and don't forget to follow us, of course, on all the socials. You know where they are.
The tubes.
Yeah, all the tubes, the socials, the tubes.
The X's.
The X's. So tell us what memories you'd like us to dive into on the next episode. All links are available via the tubes and the channels and the books. So,
yeah, if you've got suggestions, corrections, feedback, whatever you like, follow us on social media. Let us know. We're going to be back again, as I said, with some more throwbacks, trips down memory lane, nostalgia. It is what it is. We enjoy doing it. We hope you enjoy listening to it.
Thanks again for listening, guys, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Over to you, Slick Mick. Take it away.
Boom.
That's all for this episode of Millennial Memories. Don't forget to follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. Until next time, stay rad.